What is up, everybody? Because I went 11-4 last week. So we're excited this week. Hopefully, we do the same. I doubt I'll be able to do this again, but some good picks I made last week. I think the Lions plus 7.5 was a no-brainer, especially against that really weird Ravens team that has a lot of injuries. The Bengals plus 3 against the Steelers. Right now, the Steelers, they're on their decline. They're not going to be the same, and they didn't draft a quarterback for some reason. They didn't try to trade for Mitch Trubisky or Gardner Minshew or anybody, which is ridiculous. But these are my picks. Hopefully, we're able to do it again. Down at the bottom, you'll see the ticker. Yeah, down at the bottom, you'll see the ticker where you'll see a lot of lines for the games, the over-unders, things like that. I'm going to be going over every single NFL game with all my predictions and kind of see how it goes. So hopefully I'm able to revisit this next week and make everybody some money. Hopefully I make me some money too. But without further ado, let's get into it. So for the first game, the Jaguars are facing the Bengals, and all primetime games this year, they've been so entertaining. Thursday night games, usually they're really shitty games because the Jaguars, they usually play in them. But this week, the Bengals, they're out without T. Higgins, and this is going to be like no other game. They're about to whoop their ass. So the Bengals, their rushing defense this year has showed out with great performances against the Bears with David Montgomery, and then the Steelers with Najee Harris. They held them each to a 100 yards less combined. And last week, the Jaguars, they looked better only because they had a 109-yard field goal return for a touchdown. And it tied the NFL record. And back in the day, Nathan Vasher had one against the 49ers in a really windy day. But anyways, no one remembers that. But last week when Jacksonville faced Arizona, they went up 19-10 in the third quarter. And that was before blowing the lead. They ended up allowing 21 straight unanswered points. And the Jaguars running game, they have James Robinson, and he's really good. He's their lead back, but he's going to be slowing down this week just because the Bengals rushing defense is too good, and they're going to have to level up. The Bengals defense, they're 8th in the league in rushing yards, 8th in the league in giving up the least amount of rushing yards, and they're going to force Trevor Lawrence to throw the ball. And right now, Trevor Lawrence, he's leading the league in interceptions, and he's going to be put into some bad windows. And the Bengals, they've barely even passed the ball this year so far. But they're top 10 in passer rating with Joe Burrow. I love Joey B. I think he's going to be a stud at the NFL level, but they're not letting him make any mistakes. They're not allowing him to get put in harm's way, kind of like how I think of Jameis Winston this year with Sean Payton running the offense. But I think that the Bengals, they're going to run the ball down the throat of the Jaguars with Joe Mixon. And Jamar Chase is going to have yet another big game just because T. Higgins is out again. This week, I have the Bengals winning 32-20. The Jaguars are going to go 0-4. I'm probably going to pick against them every time this week. The total points is 45.5, but with people being out, with the Jaguars secondary not looking too good, I think this is an obvious over. Right now, the Bengals are favorite -7.5. I think this game could be a little bit closer. And one of the reasons why, too, the Jags, they traded one of their top cornerbacks in C.J. Henderson, their first-round draft pick in 2020. And they're going to be a little weak in the secondary. And the Bengals, they have something to prove in the tough AFC North division that they're in. And this game just screams the over. So I'm going with the over this week. I'm going to be betting that with 45.5. It's one of the lower ones this week. There's a couple at 42. But this is going to be a game where I think it's obvious. And Trevor Lawrence, he's going to be forced to get some garbage time throws. He might be a good fantasy quarterback this week, but I am not trusting anybody on that team, minus maybe James Robinson. But I don't think he's going to have a good week this week either. But for the next game, we got the Washington football team, the R-Words, versus the Falcons. And through the first 3 games, the football team faced the Chargers, Bills, and Giants. So the Chargers, they're good, with Justin Herbert in their second year. The Bills, they're some people's picks to go to the Super Bowl and win it. And it all makes sense to me. And obviously they face the Giants, and, the Giants fucking suck. But they face the Giants. They beat them with their backup quarterback. The Falcons, they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. I don't think any of this falls on Matt Ryan's shoulders, though. He's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Well, top 15 at least. But he's still good. He's still very serviceable. The biggest issue is that he's in his first year in the system with a new offensive coordinator. Or with all new coordinators. And Atlanta looks bad. They just keep getting outplayed every week. And the Eagles, they whooped on them in week 1. And that made the Eagles look like a playoff team. And even though the football team is fourth in yards given up on defense and opposing quarterbacks, they have a passer rating of 105.2. It's going to be hard to take the Falcons considering how consistently bad they've been. They haven't came back to relevancy since they lost the Super Bowl with the 28-3 game versus the Patriots. And I know talking about that's really hard for a lot of Falcons fans. Shout out the Garcias. But even with the backup quarterback with the football team, I would have expected the line to be the football team, -3 or so. The total points this game is 47.5. I could definitely see that just because both these teams, I have no clue what they're going to do offensively. With Tyler Heineke as the quarterback, I don't trust him at all. He's a chicken with his head cut off behind the line of scrimmage. And the Falcons, they just do rinky-dink passes. I'm not sure. The reason why I'm staying away this game is because I'm not sure if Chase Young and the defense, they're going to be able to figure it out. Chase Young has been attacking way too aggressively, and he ends up behind the quarterback, especially last week. If you watch some recaps, you'll see him being behind Josh Allen while Josh Allen steps up in the pocket. It's going through some sophomore season slumps, but we'll see what happens. But the Falcons, they will accidentally win some games this year, like last week when they faced the Giants. But at the end of the day, I think the football team, they have better coaching. They're in their second year in that system, and they know what they're trying to do as an offense. I like Ron Rivera. And they know what they're trying to do at least a little bit. Matt Ryan, he likes to play it safe. And the football team, they have a backup. I would absolutely take the under in this game if you want to bet this game. But this is not a game I'm confident. But if I had to pick something, I suppose I would get the football team -1.5. I think that is a decent line. But I don't trust either team in this one. So I am staying the fuck away. For the next game that we're going into the Texans and Bills. If you just look at this game, the biggest thing that jumps off the board is the Bills -15.5. And that's the biggest line this week by far. Tyrod Taylor, he's the quarterback of the Texans. He's going to be going back to Buffalo. And that's where he got the Bills to the playoffs in 2017. That was the first time the Bills made the playoffs since 1999. And he might get a standing ovation, but there's no way he's getting a win in Buffalo. He might cover, but I highly doubt it. And there's a reason why the spread's looking like that. The Bills defense, they're just looking way too good over the past 2 games, including a shutout versus the Miami Dolphins where they held them to no points. And the passing offense, it was just put on display last week, especially with their second and third wide receivers, including, Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders. The only bright side I could see on the Houston Texans team is Brandon Cooks, which he's probably going to get traded at the trade deadline, even though the NFL doesn't really make too many trades like the NBA does. But he's their only reliable wide receiver on that team, and he's going to get a lot of yards and targets this season. But this is going to be another blowout. I'm going 38-14 with the Bills. Bills -15.5. That's one of my picks this week. I think it's not necessarily a lock, but I'm pretty confident in that one. So we're going to see if the Bills are going to be able to keep their winning streak going after their week 1 woes versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was just a fluke in my opinion, especially with that Pittsburgh Steelers team. They look like ass. But for the next game, going for the Lions, Tigers, and Bears. Lions at Bears. And just a fun fact, this game is the longest running annual series in the NFL, as both teams they've met at least once since 1930. But a lot of people say, like, what about the Packers and the Bears? That's the oldest rivalry. But in 1982, there was a strike, and the Packers, they just weren't able to get anything going. The Packers and the Bears, they didn't play in the 1982 season. But both teams, they had all-time disappointing weeks. The Bears, they had an all-time bad offensive game, and the Lions, they lost to a 66-yard field goal, which is totally losing in Lions fashion. But this is another game I would stay away from. The Bears, they had a really tough game last game, and the Bears had the second least amount of completions by a quarterback behind the New Orleans Saints, who've completed only 39 passes but have 7 touchdown passes with Jameis Winston. And the Bears, they only have 1 touchdown pass. They have the lowest yards per attempt, but the Lions are 8th in passing yards given up. But I wouldn't worry about that if I was the Lions. The bright side about this is that the Bears, they're in 3rd in the league in sacks. So they're going to be pressuring Jared Goff. They're going to be, trying to stop the running game. That's what they need to do with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams getting 25 carries a game. But one thing I've noticed about watching the Bears over the past 20 years is that they can't score points. And this week, they're facing the Lions without Matthew Stafford. This point spread in this game, it's 42. It's 42.5, excuse me. On the graphic, it's actually wrong. But the reason why I'd stay away from this game is just because both teams are really bad and they have something to prove. Right now, it's almost certain who the Bears. Right now, it's uncertain who the Bears will have as their starting quarterback. Not like it matters anyways, but the Lions, they're limited as long as they have Goff at their quarterback. And there's one thing for certain, that the Bears pressure quarterbacks, and Jared Goff throws to his tight ends and running backs. He does dump-off passes. He's not a great quarterback. He's serviceable, but he's not the greatest. And Goff doesn't do well under pressure since both teams are dumpster fire this year, with one win between them both, thanks for the Bears committing 3 turnovers on 3 consecutive passes by Joe Burrow in week 2. They would both be 0-3. But if the Bears, if they didn't turn one of those interceptions into a pick 6 touchdown by Roquan Smith, then they'd be 0-3 too. The Bears theoretically probably should be 0-3. And I wouldn't trust betting on bad teams because both these teams are bad, but Matt Nagy cannot lose this game, especially when they're at home facing a division rival that's 0-3. And I also wouldn't be surprised if this game ended in a tie. That's how much I'm saying about this game. But if I had to choose this game, I would pick the Bears straight up in the under, because I am not picking any favorites or any lines this game. Maybe I would pick the Lions +3, but any game that the Bears play in, picking the under is always a good move. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a tie. I wouldn't be surprised at any of that stuff. But I'm staying away from this game because I'm not picking a game with 2 shitty teams because I lack so much confidence with it. But that's really it for the Bears. The Bears, they're the Bears. The Lions are the Lions. For the next game, going with the Panthers at Cowboys. And this line, it's 50.5. The Cowboys favored -5. The Cowboys, they looked really good on Monday night, but it was against a dysfunctional Philly franchise. And the Panthers, they're 3-0, but they have faced the Texans, the Jets, and with their only real matchup coming against the Saints in week 2. But they have one of the best defenses in the league right now in a bunch of statistical categories. But this is going to be their hardest matchup yet with the Dallas Cowboys, especially with their high-powered offense. The Panthers, they haven't trailed at all this season. I definitely see that changing this week so far. The Dallas Cowboys, they have such a high-powered offense. I can't see them keeping points off the board, minus some, interceptions or some mistakes that they would beat themselves at. But the Panthers, they look good. They're missing some highly key starters, which is going to be really concerning for this game. They looked like they were going to lose last week versus the Texans, which was very concerning, but they lost Christian McCaffrey and their first-round draft pick, J.C. Horn. On the bright side, since Horn got injured, he does seem to be out for the season. Carolina, they traded for the former first-round pick, C.J. Henderson from Jacksonville, like I was saying earlier. So this is going to help their secondary regardless. Carolina does not have a great offensive line, and it's going to show more with Christian McCaffrey out, with the rookie Chuba Hubbard playing. And I think it's going to kind of show a little bit more how they feel and how they play. But the Cowboys, they're going to win. Sam Darnold, he might have a great game, but that's because the Cowboys' pass defense isn't the greatest. Their rushing attack and ability to attack the quarterback is very good, especially with Micah Parsons being used in the pass rush. And one of the funniest things this week that happened so far is that Jerry Jones said he's about as natural as mother's milk. And then, which is like the weirdest thing, he's about as pure as mother's milk, which is the creepiest thing. Jerry, get your shit together. But the Cowboys are a team where it would be hard to take the under in any game that they play. Even with the Philadelphia game, they were able to score 62 points in a game where the Eagles were not able to get anything going. So the Cowboys are going to win convincingly. The Cowboys are -5. I think that this is going to be a game where the Panthers, they catch up in garbage time. They're going to be pressured. They're not going to be able to throw the ball as much until it becomes garbage time. That's where Sam Darnold's going to be able to get a lot of his passing yards. Just like last week with Jalen Hurts, he ended up, playing like an ass in the beginning of the game with the really bad play calling from Nick Sirianni. But Cowboys -5. I'm locking that in. This is one of my favorite plays this week. Next game, Colts Dolphins. Colts, they absolutely need to win. They're in desperation mode. Last week, they started Carson Wentz, which was just such a weird game for him. He was looking scared. But both these teams at the beginning of the year, these are teams that they're in divisions where they have playoff aspirations. They could have made it. The Dolphins were the clear number 2 in that division, with the Bills being number 1 and the Colts with the Titans. But they could still make a run at the wild card. I doubt that for the Colts because I couldn't tell you the last team to start 0-3 to go to the Super Bowl or even go to the playoffs. Last year, no 0-2 team even made the playoffs. So it was really weird. Last week was a weird game with the Dolphins. They were close to winning last week in an overtime thriller versus the Raiders. Then they fell 0-2, fell 1-2. And last week, they scored 11 points in the fourth quarter, and they scored all their other points in the first quarter, and then were just studs in the second and the third. So this week it's going to be a little weird, but the Dolphins did look way better than expected, and Jacoby Brissett looked way better after getting the first team reps after a whole week, getting the first team reps for a whole week since Tua's out. Miami, the strength for Miami was supposed to be the defense at the beginning of the season, but now they're allowing 27.3 yard points per game, which is 23 in the league. Last week, Carson Wentz, he looked scared to take a hit. He was dumping passes off into the ground as soon as the defender came towards him. He was really quick to throw the ball away, and I was really surprised that he started because he had 2 injured ankles, which is hard to walk on, I am assuming. But with Brett Hundley as your backup quarterback, Wentz is probably the best quarterback that would give you the best chance to win. But he did look bad, only completing 51% of his passes. I don't think he's 100% healthy yet. He's still going to be dumping those balls off to the ground, to tight ends. Mike Gesicki is going to have a good game for the Dolphins. But the Colts, they're kind of a weird game where this is a weird game where I don't trust either team, but I trust the Colts less. And I think the Dolphins minus 2.5 has good value, but I have a hard time trusting each team at all. So I'm staying away from this game 100%. Next game, Browns versus Vikings. This is actually going to be a really good game. One of the reasons why is that Kevin Stefanski, the coach of the Browns, he was with the Vikings for 13 years before getting his head coaching gig in Cleveland. This is the first time he's facing the Vikings since he got the head coaching job, so he's got something to prove a little bit. He coached with Mike Zimmer for a while. Last week, the Vikings faced a weird Seahawks team where they destroyed them in the second half. One thing about the Browns that isn't a secret is that they're going to run the ball down your throats. Baker did get sacked 5 times last game, and he's facing a weak Vikings secondary. And the Vikings defense, they haven't performed up to standards, especially with Mike Zimmer as their head coach. But since the Browns love run the ball so much, they're going to open up the play action and dismantle the Vikings defense. I just think it's an obvious play. Also, Kirk Cousins, he's having a very interesting season. He has great stats, but they haven't really translated into wins. Week 1, lost against the Bengals. Last week, got their first win against a decent, really weird Seahawks team. But with that being said, the Browns had the second most sacks against opposing quarterbacks, right behind the Carolina Panthers. And the Browns are just looking good. They can beat you a couple different ways, but the number one way is that they are going to run the ball down your throats. Good thing about the Vikings is that their wide receiver core is amazing. Even Osborne, their third-string wide receivers, he's been getting looks this season. But I think they're going to make Kirk Cousins make some mistakes by pressuring him. I think the Browns minus 2 is a great pick this week. I don't see this game being closer than 5-6 points. I got the Browns winning 34-24, going to 3-1, and then the Vikings being 1-3, possibly being one of the best 1-3 teams of all time. But Browns minus 2, I think it's a great pick for this week. Next game up, Giants, Saints. Giants are trash, but I do think this game is going to be closer than people think. One of the reasons why is because the Giants and Daniel Jones, they were calling him Vanilla Vic, like Mike Vick, which is hilarious. We call him Josh Allen the White Mike Vick, but Vanilla Vic is probably a better nickname. I think that the Saints have the least. So this is a good stat. The Saints had the least amount of pass attempts in the league, but they have 7 touchdown passes. I'm so impressed by Sean Payton and how he's handling Jameis Winston because they're not putting him in danger. And he's giving him great reads, so he's not able to, make costly interceptions or be a gunslinger and make those bad decisions. I do think that since the Saints played the Patriots last week and were still able to win against that pass defense where the Patriots are tops in the league in pass defense, they're going to have a good game this week. But they're going to try to go a little bit harder with throwing the ball. They're going to try to let Jameis out a little bit, even after that convincing win against the Patriots last week where they had a lot of good field position and returned to pick 6. But I do think Winston's going to have some costly interceptions. It's going to go get a little bit closer down when it comes down to the end of the game because of garbage time. I don't think the Saints are going to lose this game, but it's be closer than people think. Daniel Jones, he's had an okay season so far, but he doesn't seem like he's the problem in New York. Giants minus 7.5. I would be hammering this because I don't think the Saints can really score too many points. Week 1 versus the Packers, where they scored 38. They were playing in Jacksonville. They're going to be playing at home this week. I think that they're going to try to let Jameis loose for the home team. But we're going to see what happens. I'm not excited to see this game because I'm not watching any Giants games this year. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. Next game, Titans, Jets. Jets, another team I refuse to watch. Titans, I like the Titans, I guess. I got Tannehill on my fantasy team, but I'm not starting him. I'm starting Jalen Hurts. But moral of the story is the Jets just stink. Jets, garbage fire. If I was in New York, I would be moving out, or I'd be going to Boston. I'd become a Patriots fan or something. They drop passes. They throw interceptions. They let teams control the entire game. And when Teddy Bridgewater, he's playing against you and he's completing 80% of his passes and gets no touchdowns, and you lose by 20 and score no points, you have a lot of bad things happening. But one thing concerning about the Titans is that they have an injury bug. A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, they could miss this game. Good news is they're facing the freaking Jets. Last week, the Titans, they committed 2 turnovers and still won by 9 and covered the spread. But the most interesting thing going on is that Derrick Henry has been catching the ball in the backfield. He's on pace for 68 catches this year, all while running the ball a shit ton. The most amount of catches he's caught in a season is 19. So I don't think that he's going to be able to get 68 catches, but he's going to be utilized, especially with their top 2 wide receivers going out. And they're going to be so focused on Derrick Henry, it's going to bring out these no-name wide receivers that are on the Titans. His usage rate is insane, but it's going to open up the play action god, Ryan Tannehill. And once again, they're facing the freaking Jets. He's going to throw it to these random wide receivers, including Josh Reynolds and Nick Westbrook, whoever the fuck they are. I mean, nobody really knows, honestly, especially when you have A.J. Brown and Julio Jones on your team. But this is a game I'm not watching, but I am picking this game. I'm excited to see what goes on. Titans minus 7.5. I don't think it's particularly close at all. The Jets haven't able to stir up any signs of offense, haven't able to complete passes. Their wide receivers keep dropping the ball. We're going to see what happens for this upcoming week. Next game, Chiefs, Eagles. Chiefs, NFL just released their power rankings. They still had them in the top 5. I think they were number 1, which is crazy. In any game that the Chiefs play, you got to bet the over. I mean, let's be real here. They throw points. They got a terrible pass defense. They don't have a good defense at all. But the Chiefs, they've been proven to have a bad defense year after year, and they've had the hardest time in the world trying to apply pressure to the quarterback. Good news is that the Eagles' play calling sucks, and it's very inconsistent. And coming after a hard divisional loss to the Cowboys, there isn't much hope for the Eagles this game. The Eagles, they're going to be able to put up some points in garbage time. And right now, the Eagles are in desperation mode after losing to the Cowboys. And the Chiefs are the last team you want to face. And I might even say that the Chiefs might be in desperation mode too at this point. But I wouldn't want to face the Chiefs if I was the Eagles. There's no doubt that this game is a tune-up game for the Chiefs. I remember in the movie Longest Yard with Adam Sandler, they made the inmates, the prison people, they made them play against the guards for a tune-up game, and then they ended up winning. That's not going to happen this game. Chiefs are about to blow them out. Jalen Hurts, he's going to be running around. He's not going to be pressured as hard as he was like he was when he was facing a good Cowboys rushing defense. But last week, the Chiefs, they were able to keep a divisional game close with the Chargers while committing 4 turnovers. That is huge. There were some dumb mistakes made by the Chiefs where Pat Mahomes, he threw a no-look pass. The wide receiver had no clue who was coming, went right off his hands, went into the defender's hands. It was an interception. That's probably not going to happen this game. So when you're committing 4 turnovers and you only lose by 6 and it comes down to the wire, your team has a bright future. But the Chiefs, they're going to outscore you. I wouldn't doubt anything other than the Chiefs winning by 7.5 or more. I'm definitely taking the Chiefs. Chiefs minus 7.5 and the over this game. This is a game I would put into my parlays because I don't trust anything the Eagles do, and I won't until I see something else, and that NFC East is just awful. But for the next game, I'm excited to see this game. This next game is probably one of the best games of the week. It's not the most exciting as far as storylines goes, but I love this game. Cardinals, Rams, both 3-0, both looking like they're real deals this season. It's kind of weird the Rams are minus 4.5 with the season that the Cardinals have been having. The Rams are firing at all cylinders. Their backup running back ran the ball 20 times last week. Matthew Stafford had 4 touchdowns and over 300 yards. Their defense was able to stop Tom Brady. Well, a little bit. He still threw for like 400 yards, but they stopped him convincingly. Their pass defense wasn't the best, but that's because the Bucs refused to run the ball, and Tom Brady was their leading rusher. And when you throw the ball over 50 times, you're probably not rushing it as much. But it's because they had to play catch up, Tom Brady and the boys. But the Rams got ahead and didn't look back. The Cardinals are no joke either, though. This division is arguably one of the best divisions in the past 10 years, and the Cardinals, they're undefeated right now, and they have the highest scoring offense with 34.4 points per game. The Cardinals, they've been able to pressure quarterbacks that they've faced. They've had 9 sacks this season so far. And the offensive line for the Rams is easily one of the toughest that the Cardinals have faced so far. They're tops in the league. But through three weeks, Stafford, he continues to be one of the least pressured quarterbacks in the league. And this is a game that could be closer than the line expects. This game, it's going to be really hard to judge, but both teams are almost certain locks to make the playoffs at this point. Both started 3-0. I can't stress it enough. And the 2 other teams in the division, the 49ers and Seahawks, they had the chances to make the playoffs too. The Rams, however, they seem just to have way more talent than other teams. They're just better coaching, better teams, better players. Excuse me. Considering the Cardinals, they were struggling versus the freaking Jaguars through the first half and were down 19-10 before they went on a 21-point run. I think the Rams will absolutely win this game in an extremely important division game. And keep in mind, these division matchups, they're going to be really important when it comes down to the end of the season when deciding playoff seeding. And Kyler Murray, he's going to put up points on the board, and Stafford's going to, he's going to have some time in the pocket. And even if Aaron Donald plays out of his mind, Kyler Murray, he's so elusive and quick. I could see him making some great plays, but the Rams are at home. Rams, I'm taking the Rams the money line. I'm not picking any spreads. This game kind of scares me, but I think the Rams, they are definitely going to win this game. And if you're thinking about taking the points in this game, I think the total points would be a good play because in the last 8 meetings versus the Cardinals, the Rams are 7-0-1 against the spread. So I would stay away from this game because they're both great teams, but I do think that the Rams are going to win in a thriller. So excited to see that. Next game, Ravens, Broncos. This game's very interesting. The line's 44.5. Broncos are favored by -1. And I messed up on my Zips pick where it should be Ravens +1. But Bridgewater, he's been pressured at the highest rate this season and leads the league in completion percentage under pressure. The Ravens, they have the highest blitz percentage in the league since 2018. But that being said, I think that the Broncos are frauds. Broncos, they faced a bunch of bums this year, including last week versus the Jets, the Jaguars, and the Texans. And those teams combined have not won a game. They're also favored in the first 7 games this season. Their schedule's ass. And they've faced such shitty defenses and offenses. It's like swinging a bat, a really light one. And then once you get that heavier bat, you go to the major leagues, it's going to seem a lot heavier. So this game, that's how this game's going to go. I have a lot of question marks with the Ravens barely winning against a shitty Detroit Lions team. Got bailed out by Justin Tucker, who's 16 for 16 in the final minute of regulation for the field goals. And it's only fitting that they beat the Lions that way. But that all happened after the Ravens beat the Chiefs in a Sunday night thriller. Ravens have been weird this year, and it's extremely hard to gauge the Ravens, but I think Lamar Jackson has a big enough sample size for defenses to put together a plan to beat him. He isn't unknown anymore. The Ravens' running back situation is also an issue, but they're the only team aside from the Cardinals that could win a game with their quarterback as their leading rusher. But with all that negativity being said about the Ravens, I'm taking the Ravens +1 this week. It's because I like John Harbaugh. He is not going to go 1-3. There's no way that the Broncos are going to get out-schemed. They're going to get outplayed. There's no way I could see the Ravens going 1-3. I'm taking this because this is another desperation game for the Ravens if they want to be able to contend for a division championship, or if they want to contend for a wild card spot, which it would probably have to be a wild card spot considering they're facing the Browns in the division and the Bengals are looking good with their defense, but the Bengals are going to end up hitting that hill and then falling off of it, I feel like. But even though the Ravens got embarrassed by the Lions last week, or at least almost did, I'm taking the Ravens +1. No way the Ravens go 1-3. Next game, Steelers-Packers. Packers are playing at home this week, and the Steelers have fell off a cliff. Packers playing at home after going on the road and upsetting the 49ers at their own stadium. That game was insane. Aaron Rodgers had more yards in 37 seconds than the Bears did the entire game last week, and the Packers are looking back to midseason form. Aaron Rodgers is playing like himself again, minus that week one tragedy, and the Pittsburgh defense is a little banged up. With TJ Watt and a few other players coming off an injury, they're still questionable. And during week one, the Steelers beat a Super Bowl hopeful in the Bills, but since then, they've looked really bad on both sides of the ball. They were able to run the ball against a tough Bengals run They weren't able to run the ball against a tough Bengals run defense, and last week they gave the Bengals really good field position. They weren't able to get anything going offensively. Last week, Najee Harris, the rookie running back, got drafted in the first round. He was the highest targeted receiver on that team. A reason why he was the highest targeted receiver on the team was because Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster were injured during the Bengals game, and it's uncertain if they're even going to play this week. Even Ben Roethlisberger didn't practice yesterday because of his pectoral injury. Big Ben's always injured. He's a very weird quarterback, but with all these concerns, it's almost impossible not to take the Packers after their showing last week. And with all the injuries for the Steelers, it's a no-brainer. Packers by 1,000,000. Picking the Packers, minus 6.5 for my pick. I got 27-14. I think this one's very obvious. If you're not betting this one in your parlays, you're an idiot. Next game, Buccaneers Patriots. Sunday night, Tom Brady going back to Foxborough for the first time since he played in Foxborough. And even with a bunch of better games this week, or at least a few, with the 49ers versus Seahawks, Rams versus Cardinals, this game is going to be exciting. When Tom Brady makes his first return to New England, it's going to be something different in the air, you know? Some interesting points of this game. You know, does Bill Belichick know all of Tom Brady's moves? Does Tom know all of Bill's moves? I doubt either, but if I were to say who knows more about each other, I would definitely say Bill knows more about Tom Brady. The Patriots, they've been a top 3 defense in the league so far, which is a testament to Bill Belichick and his mythology with how he plays. He loves having great defenses, and that's one of the reasons why Tom Brady's been so successful throughout his entire career. He's had great defenses behind him, and when he hasn't been able to do anything. But when the Patriots have given up the second least amount of passing yards per game, and the Buccaneers have given up the most passing yards per game, it's always an interesting matchup when both polar opposites face each other. The Buccaneers' passing defense has looked very bad all year round, especially last week with Matthew Stafford throwing for over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, that type of thing. Regardless, this game has been circled on both teams' calendars since the schedule came out. Tom Brady, he only needs 68 passing yards to pass Drew Brees for the all-time record, and I swear this is all planned. It all seems rigged at this point, that they knew this was going to happen. They knew he was going to break the record. It had to be when he came back home to Foxborough and Patriots in New England. Anyway, the Bucs' high-powered offense, it's always going to score points. I don't think they're going to have a tough time versus the pass defense, at least in the second half. But initially, they're probably going to struggle a little bit, and they might try to run the ball, but their running defense has been awful, or the running offense has been awful. The under in this game, it makes sense to me. So the total points, it's 49. The under in this game, it makes sense only because of the strong pass defense of the Patriots. But they're facing Tom Brady. Tom Brady, he's thrown the ball more than any other QB this year. They want Tom Brady to get all the touches. Last week, when they were running the hurry-up offense in the final minute versus the Rams game, I have no idea why. I don't see another reason why they would have kept him in the game other than him just trying to stack up these points, have another all-time season, and be able to break records. And honestly, it's cheap. He's going to be down in some games this week or this year, like in the Rams where they have no point in coming back, and he's going to still throw the ball. He's still going to try to get touchdown passes, get those yards. He's having an insane season so far, but it's kind of fool's gold, especially after facing the Cowboys in Atlanta in the first 2 weeks. I mean, Tom Brady, quit sucking his dick. He's not that great, especially through this season so far. Even though he has 10 touchdown passes, I think that is a little bit fool's gold. But with that being said, you got to pick the Bucs. I would stay away from this game because I don't trust Bill Belichick versus Tom Brady. This is a big game that I'm going to be looking at and find very interesting. I do have the Bucs winning 30-20 in my pick'ems, but I'm staying away from this game. It's going to be a great game to watch Sunday night. It's going to be electric. So next game, Monday night, Raiders, Chargers. I am going to be shitting my pants over this game. There's going to be a lot of great games this week, but I can't think of a better way to end it off than the Chargers versus the Raiders. This season, Derek Carr, he's averaged over 400 passing yards per game, and there's a reason why Derek Carr is the all-time leading passer for the Raiders, which is a fun stack. I mean, Raiders have been around for forever, and he's still the all-time leading passer. Really interesting, but Derek Carr, he always gets the short end of the stick because of his lack of weapons that he's had the past few years and the lack of defensive prowess. And the Raiders are 3-0 for the first time in almost a decade, since 2002 when they went to the Super Bowl and they faced the Bucs there. It'd be crazy if there was a repeat of that Super Bowl, and John Gruden's in it, which he was in it in that Super Bowl too, and he was the coach for the Bucs, and now he's the coach for the Raiders. Anyways, I digress. But Derek Carr, his second-year receivers are showing out a little bit more, while Darren Waller continues to get his targets. Derek Carr, he's the front runner for the MVP, but let's see if he can keep that pace. The Raiders, also, they get Josh Jacobs back this week, and one of the most surprising parts of the Raiders game last week was Peyton Barber, their third-string running back. He got over 20 carries. He rushed the ball 23 times, while Kenyon Drake, the running back, which they just signed over at $10 million, he only got 4. This might just be a game where Barber sees those touches in that little crowded backfield, but I see this being an anomaly. I don't see Peyton Barber having another game like this again. He's not even projected to run the ball. This game, if you look at your fantasy app on ESPN, Yahoo, or whatever, he's literally projected for 0.0 goose eggs on the board. But we'll see what happens. The Raiders, they beat some decent teams this year, including the Ravens, Steelers, the Dolphins, with 2 overtime games. Derek Carr's clutch. They shouldn't have let those games get to that way, but they did come down. They did come back from being down 14 points versus the Ravens. So, but regardless, they're facing a tough Chargers team. This is going to be their biggest test yet. The Chargers, they're looking healthy. The Ravens aren't really healthy. The Steelers really aren't healthy, and the Dolphins aren't healthy. The Chargers are coming off a super big high after beating the Chiefs, and if I'm Justin Herbert, I'm just ecstatic after beating Patrick Mahomes. I'm like, give me that torch, pass the torch to me. I'm the best now. Who do you think you are? I am. But the Chargers, they're finally using Mike Williams. They're giving him looks that he needs to succeed. Keenan Allen is a dog. He's a monster. He's going to get those slot receiving targets. But just like the NFC West, the AFC West is looking like an insanely difficult division. These divisional matchups, they're crucial in the playoff seeding, and it looks like both teams, they're going to be in the playoff race. The Chargers secondary is nothing to laugh at. They were able to hold the high-powered Dallas Cowboys points, the high-powered Dallas Cowboys offense to only 20 points, and force 4 turnovers against a great Chiefs offense. Asante Samuel Jr., cornerback for the Chargers, he has 2 interceptions this year so far, and he's looking like his dad when he played in the NFL. Chargers, they've been doing great. They've honestly been killing it. But let's see what happens with the Raiders when they face a decent team like them. I think the Raiders, their defense is pretty good. The defense is definitely better than the Chiefs. The Ravens, when they were facing the Ravens, they had multiple ACL tears. Steelers injured on both sides of the ball. And when you're facing Miami with a backup quarterback, Miami's a weird team in this year regardless. But this week, I have the Chargers minus 3.5. I think this is one that just jumps off the board to me. I think the Raiders are going to have to slow down at some point, and this is going to be one of those games. But I am excited for Monday night. This is probably my favorite game of the week. But anyways, appreciate y'all for watching. Appreciate you, John, Joe, everybody. Love you all. Smooches. I'm going to be releasing this on my YouTube. I'm going to break down all the segments and everything. I'm going to be coming out with another recap, too, with my buddy Jash. And we're going to be going over every game and his picks and talk about some fantasy and things like that, too. So, y'all, thank y'all for watching. And like, comment, and subscribe. All right, see y'all. Peace.